Hi everyone, this is Mike Lewandowski coming to you today with another video. Today's featured early church saint is Saint Anthony of Egypt. And information about Anthony comes to us today from the Catholic Encyclopedia at www.newadvent.org. However, I did want to point out the primary source about this great saint. And this comes to us, his biography was written in the 4th century by Saint Athanasius. Athanasius was a doctor of the church, he was a bishop in Egypt, and he wrote the first comprehensive life on Anthony. And I read this book some time ago. It's a great book. I plan to read it again in the future. But if you want to learn more about Anthony's life, this is where to go. And this is historical, and it really tells about his beginnings and how he became this great saint that so many people looked up to. So, just wanted to point that out to you today. But let's get to the life of Anthony. So, Anthony was from Egypt. He was from a very wealthy family, and at the age of 20, both of his parents passed away, leaving him with a pretty sizable inheritance. Now, for most people, this would make them extremely happy and they would feel a sense of security that they're set, for the rest of their lives. However, that was not the case with Anthony because Anthony had a different desire. He wanted to live his life like the apostles did. He wanted to live a life of such passion for Christ that he wanted to imitate the early Christians. One day, when he was in the church and the gospel was being proclaimed, he heard these words: "If you will be perfect, go and sell all that you have." Anthony believed, he felt in the deepest part of his being that those words were being spoken directly to him. Those words were meant to him. That's what he was supposed to do with his life. And that's exactly what he did. He sold all his possessions, and then he went and he resided in an area outside the village where there were tombs, and he lived in a tomb. It's important to note that at this time there were other Christians who desired to live a more rigorous lifestyle. So what they would do is they would actually just reside just outside of a village, maybe live in a hut, and live a life of prayer and fasting and sacrifice. So Anthony did this for a number of years, and in fact, he was, as he was growing deeper and deeper into holiness, he was attacked more and more by Satan. In fact, the attacks became so fierce that he was even physically assaulted, beaten up very badly. Um, and we know this to be true because this has happened to many other saints, even right into the 20th century with Padre Pio. So Anthony experienced these temptations, these attacks, but he persevered in holiness. However, Anthony desired a deeper solitude, a deeper communion with God. So he actually went off into the desert, away from villages, and he went on a mountain that was along the Nile River. And on this mountain, he found an old fort. And he lived there for 20 years without seeing another human being. He made an arrangement for somebody to bring him food, and they would throw it over the wall. But Anthony never communicated with them. He never saw them. And he lived this intense life of prayer. However, um, this this spiritual man who was living out in the wilderness, that news eventually reached other ears. And a number of people sought to go out and see Anthony. They wanted to talk to him. They wanted to receive spiritual direction from him. Well, at first, when people started showing up to the mountain, Anthony refused to see them. They were invading his solitude. Here, he wanted to live this life of prayer alone, and now all these people are coming. And some of them um, were so insistent that they just lived on the mountain. So they found a cave and they started to live a very simple life like Anthony. Well, eventually, Anthony, um, he met with them and he gave them spiritual direction, he gave them guidance, and he formed them into a community, basically what we would call a monastery, and he gave them guidance, he gave them a rule which they were to live by. And after some time then, after they were settled in this life, Anthony went deeper into the desert and again entered into a time of intense prayer. This time, though, he would travel back to the old fort and meet with the monks to see how they were doing. And in fact, twice he even went into the city. He went into the city of Alexandria. Once in the year 311 to encourage fellow Christians who were going to be martyred. And another time in the year 350, he entered the city to speak out against the heretic Arius, who essentially was promoting this heresy that Christ was not equal to the Father. In fact, every Sunday when we pray the Nicene Creed, and we say that in regards to Jesus that he was begotten, not made, we are condemning Arius in that statement. Anthony then, of course, went back to the wilderness, and he finally died at the age of 105. Anthony's feast day is celebrated in the church on January 17th, and he's considered the father of Christian monasticism and really the father of religious life. And he was a much admired saint in the early church, and he's still admired by so many people today. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please look forward to more videos in the future. Thank you.